Jason Lorcana's next set, Winterspell, is almost here, and there are so many amazing cards that are coming with it. Honestly, the thought of trying to review everything just feels a little bit overwhelming, so I decided I'm going to do this in stages. And I can think of no better place to start than the 12 brand new legendaries. These cards represent 9 distinct franchises, some of which are brand new to the game, while others have been around since the first chapter. And, as befits some of the rarest cards in the set, a few of them feel almost broken with what they bring to the table. So, stick with us as we take a look at the legendary cards of Winterspell. First up, featuring one of the set's brand new franchises, we have Pocahontas Peacekeeper. She's an inkable 5-cost Floodborn hero princess with 3 strength, 6 willpower, and 2 lore. She has Shift 3 and the ability Calming Words. When you play this character, if you used Shift to play her and none of your characters challenge this turn, characters can't challenge until the start of your next turn. So, I really like this card. I think not only did they capture the feel of Pocahontas, but this ability is actually going to go a long way towards making Amber aggro just into a top tier deck. Aggro wants a lot of smaller creatures with high lore value, and that's always made them susceptible to being challenged. But with Pocahontas around, that's not going to be a problem. This ability isn't all that dissimilar from what Tiana, restaurant owner, is already bringing to the table, but I would argue that Pocahontas does it better. If you've played Tiana, you know you're lucky if you manage to turn her sideways to activate that ability, and once she's gone, that protection she provides is also gone. So this is where Pocahontas has a slight edge, because if you do meet those requirements, no prior challenges this turn, and you shift her, she's going to create that challenge limitation almost out of nowhere. I mean, you're going to have a Pocahontas in play to be a shift target, so your opponents might suspect something's coming, but once it does come down, that restriction is going to stick around for the duration, even if they somehow manage to remove Pocahontas. Now, of course, since shift is so important with this card, her true value is going to lie in the target you have to shift her onto. For that, we've got 2 cards, none of which are really amazing, but one is definitely better than the other. So starting with the lesser of these 2 is Pocahontas Following the Wind. She is an uninkable 2-cost Dreamborn hero princess with 3 strength, 2 willpower, and 1 lore. Her ability is What is My Path? Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to another chosen exerted character's lore value. So the problem with this is you're forced into Amber Amethyst, which I really don't think is the right combination for Pocahontas Peacekeeper. Also, those 2 cards really want to do different things. So that leaves us with the other option, which is Pocahontas Finding the Way. This is an inkable 3-cost Storyborn hero princess with 2 strength, 5 willpower, and 1 lore. Her ability is Discovery Awaits. When you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. Now, I love this ability. We've seen it before in things like Donald Duck, Musketeer Soldier, and Darling Dear Beloved Wife, and it's not to be underestimated. Extra lore out of nowhere, even if it's just a single point, can change the dynamic of a game in an instant. Downside here is that cost. At 3 ink, it's the same as shifting Peacekeeper onto her, so it's a less than optimal play. But unlike Tiana, which you want to get down as early as possible so you can activate her ability, I would argue you don't want to shift Peacekeeper out on turn 3. Take an extra turn, build out your board state, get Finding the Way into play for that extra point of surprise lore, and then the next turn, follow up with Peacekeeper. Or honestly, even the same turn if you have enough ink or you've got Aurora holding court in play. Aggro has been quietly assembling some really cool tech these last few sets, and I think Pocahontas Peacekeeper might just be the crown jewel of it all. So don't be surprised if you find yourself seeing a lot of this card over the next few months. So our next legendary is Ohana Means Family, and I think they really nailed this one. This is an inkable 3-cost action that removes all damage from a chosen character of yours, then lets you draw a card for each 1 damage removed this way. So if this sounds familiar, that's because it's just Rapunzel, but without the body. And while not having that body is a bit of a drawback, Ohana makes up for it by being 1 ink cheaper and removing Rapunzel's draw limit of 3. If you really want to maximize this card, I would say you need sturdy characters that can soak a lot of damage. So Amethyst would work here. You've got Elsa the Fifth Spirit. You've got Monstro Infamous Whale. I just don't see the framework for Amber Amethyst. I'm not saying it can't work, just that it's probably not the most efficient way to do it. I think Ruby would honestly be better because that gives you characters that enter with damage. We've got Mulan, Injured Soldier, and there's a new version of Faju, Honorable Warrior, that both come in with damage on them. You also get access to Prince John Frady Cat that has 5 willpower, but takes a damage every time your opponent plays a character. With Ohana Means Family, that means you could theoretically heal him and draw 4 cards, though you are taking a bit of a risk depending on what your opponent's doing. You've also got things like Maui Half Shark, who wants to challenge. And the nice synergy here is that Maui gains Allure when you play an action, and when he challenges, you get to recur an action card from your discard back to hand. I do want to temper expectations, because while this card is very Rapunzel-esque, it's not Rapunzel. There is some good utility, but I don't think it's going to be a staple the same way she was. If I had to call it, I'd say this card feels a lot like Circle of Life. It's got its uses, it will be played, but it's not going to be super crazy, which isn't a bad spot for it to be, because this is Amber card draw without a ton of hoops to jump through, which is always valuable. Moving into Amethyst, I'll preface by saying that neither of these are candidate for best card in Winterspell. But considering the last set had both Demona and Hades, and the set before that had Dumbo, it is kind of refreshing to see Amethyst not get all the best toys. Still, I do think they're both pretty interesting, and I suspect at least one of them will see some play. So starting with what I think is the lesser of the two, it's Tinkerbell Snowflake Collector. She's an inkable 3-cost Dreamborn ally fairy with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. She has 2 abilities. The first is Flurry of Delight. While you have 4 or more cards in your hand, this character gains evasive. The second is Spectacular Find. While you have 7 or more cards in hand, this card gets +3 lore. First off, this card got a beautiful treatment for the Set Champ promo, in the same cut paper style we've seen with the Enchanteds and the Iconics. This style owes a lot to a Disney artist named Mary Blair, who I absolutely love. She did a lot of concept art for early Disney films like Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, Peter Pan, and her fingerprints are all over It's a Small World, which is unironically one of my favorite rides at Disneyland. As for the card, Tinkerbell's got decent stats and a high ceiling, but it's also asking a lot. Having 4 cards in hand, even for Amethyst, isn't always a guarantee, and there are other evasive characters that cost the exact same, one of which is actually another version of Tinkerbell. As for having 7+ cards in hand, that is such a high bar to clear that I don't think most decks will risk it. It reminds me a lot of Alice Growing Girl. I like this card. She gets +4 lore if she has 10 or more strength. I see abilities like that and like this with Tinkerbell as a puzzle that can be solved. What I found, though, is that by the time you're in a position to turn these kinds of abilities on, you've either already won or you've already lost. So unfortunately, I don't see this one getting that much play. I am a lot more intrigued by the other Amethyst legendary. This is Anna, Soothing Sister. She's an inkable 5-cost Floodborn hero queen with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and 1 lore. Now, interestingly enough, she does not have shift, which I think is a first for a Floodborn. Instead, she has the ability Unusual Transformation. If a card left a player's discard this turn, this card gains Shift 0. Her other ability is Warm Heart. Whenever this character quests, you may gain lore equal to the lore value of a character in your discard. If you do, put that card on the bottom of your deck. So let's take this in reverse order. That second ability can make Soothing Sister very dangerous for your opponents, but you do need a way to keep your discard full of valid targets. That's why I think Steel is a natural partner here, because you got things like Mulan, Disguised Soldier, and Namari, Single-Minded Rival, that let you filter your deck, meaning you draw a card and then you discard one. While Steel is great at putting things into your discard, it's not as good as getting them out again, but that's what Amethyst brings to the table. And for this situation, the absolute best card you could have is another brand new Ana, this one, Little Sister. She's an inkable 2-cost Storyborn hero queen. Why she is a queen and not a princess at this stage of her life, I do not know, but she has 2 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. Her ability is Unexpected Discovery. When you play this character, you may put a card from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck. So not only does she enable Soothing Sister's conditional shift, she also provides a perfect target for that shift. In a perfect world, it would go something like this. Turn 1, play Mulan. Filter a card into your discard. Turn 2, play Little Sister to move that card back into your deck, then shift out Soothing Sister for free. Turn 3, play one of Steel's many effects that puts more cards into your discard. Doc Bold Knight would do it. David Xanatos, Steel Clan Leader, would do it. There's a new Gantu, Hamsterveel's Accomplice, that would do it. It's not really complicated, and I'm definitely looking forward to testing this strategy out. Moving on to Emerald. Both of these legendaries actually represent new franchises that are debuting in Winterspell, but the caveat here is that one of the characters is not new to Disney Lorcana. That one is Donald Duck, Fred Honeywell. This is a version of him from Mickey's Christmas Carol where, appropriately enough, he's still Scrooge's nephew. This is an inkable 4-cost Storyborn ally with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. He has 2 abilities, both of which work very well with the boost mechanic. First is Spirit of Giving. Whenever you use the boost ability of a character, you may put the top card of your deck under them face down. Now, his other ability is Well Wishes. During opponent's turn, whenever one of your other characters is banished, you may draw a card for each card that was under them. So his first ability is pretty straightforward. It pairs very well with characters who want to do something when cards are put underneath them, something like Cheshire Cat and Explicable. You have both of them in play. You boost Cheshire Cat. Because of Fred's ability, you put 2 cards underneath him, and then you get 2 instances where you move 2 damage from one character to another. And all for the low, low price of 2 ink. That was a lot of 2s. The new Jiminy Cricket, Ghost of Christmas Past, wouldn't be a bad target either. 2 ink to put 2 cards under him, then move 2 cards from your discard to your Inkwell is basically all is found on layaway. Again, with the 2s, man. Fred must love his 2s. Winterspell also has characters that care about how many cards are underneath them, so the more the better. Genie, Magical Researcher, who gets +1 lore for every card under him. Goofy, Ghost of Jacob Marley, who makes your opponent discard for each card underneath him when he's banished. Donald's first ability helps power them up, and his second ability gives a great payoff. What's nice about a second ability is we don't often get straight card draw in Emerald. Usually there's some level of discard involved. I will also point out that this ability doesn't actually care about how cards get into a stack, just that they're there. So that means he will actually trigger off a shifted Floodborn too. The better synergy here is with your boosted characters because you'll probably draw a lot more cards that way, but it's nice to get some value off of your shifted characters too, a nice little bonus. I'm still on the fence with this card because other than Cheshire Cat, Boost hasn't really done anything. That might change with the set. There's a lot of cards with Boost, a lot of Boost support. And there are a couple of ways you could build a deck with this to take advantage of that. Emerald Ruby or Emerald Sapphire would both work. Not sure either will be a top tier deck, but it does look like fun, and I think I want to try building it at some point, even if it's just for my my franchise pod. Our other Emerald Legendary is a character that we have not seen before. This is from The Fox and the Hound. It's Todd Knows All the Tricks. He's an inkable 7-cost Floodborn hero with 6 strength, 6 willpower, and 2 lore. He has Shift 5 and Evasive, and the ability Impressive Leaps. Twice during your turn, whenever this character is chosen for an action or item's ability, you may ready him. There's a lot to unpack here. First off, with a Floodborn, you want a good shift target, and Todd has 2. Now, you probably don't want to use Todd Playful Kit, because trading a 2 lore character that can give you extra lore or give a character evasive doesn't feel like a good trade-off for me. I think the better one is to use Todd all alone, because a 6/6/2, 6 strength, 6 willpower, 2 lore evasive is a huge upgrade over a 2 strength, 2 willpower, 1 lore vanilla character. But man, what about that ability? Re-readying a character without a quest restriction does happen in Emerald occasionally, but it's a big deal. And doing it twice it's unheard of. I think it's unheard of. I don't think we've ever seen a card that does something like this. And what's nice is it actually isn't that hard to trigger, especially if you're using Emerald Sapphire. Emerald has a lot of decent actions that let you choose a character to your benefit. Things like Stand Out, Improvise, He's a Tramp. Sapphire, meanwhile, brings items to the table. And I think my favorite one of these is Medal of Heroes, because it gives your character +2 lore. And then you stack that with the new song Education or Elimination. That gives +1 lore and evasive. And suddenly Todd is a huge problem. So picture this. Optimally speaking, it does require Todd and Medal of Heroes in play. So you quest with Todd once. That'll give you 2 lore. Then activate Medal of Heroes for 2 ink, giving Todd 2 more lore and readying him. Quest a second time for 4 more lore. Then play Education or Elimination, readying Todd and giving him 1 last point of lore. Quest a third time for 5, and that gives you a grand total of 11 on 1 turn. That's huge. Now, will it ever happen? Probably not. But would it be awesome? Absolutely. Absolutely. Transitioning over to Ruby, we have a legendary that's trying to enable a new deck archetype, though it does remain to be seen how successful that'll be. Here we have Elsa, Ice Artisan. She's an inkable 6-cost Floodborn hero, queen, sorcerer with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and 1 lore. I will take a moment to point out the beautiful symmetry between her and Anna, Soothing Sister. They have almost identical stats, except Anna costs 1 less ink. And if you notice the song, Do You Want to Build a Snowman? It shows these 2 Floodborn versions of the sisters. Anyway, Ice Artisan has Shift 4 and 2 other abilities. First is Endless Winter. When you play this character and whenever you play a location, you may exert a chosen character with 3 strength or less. This is interesting because I don't think Ruby has ever gotten something like this where you get to exert your opponent's characters. And the second one is Distant Call. While this character is at a location, she gets +3 lore. So clearly Elsa here wants to play locations, and fortunately, Ruby has some really good options. The question then is, which color do you pair with? Amber could be cute because it gives you the starting and finishing lines for Sugar Rush. I think Amethyst would also work because you get the library, a gift for Belle, which has lore and can draw you cards. You also get the brand new Frozen Vine Monstrous Plant, which has 2 lore and built-in recursion. But Steel also has some solid options, especially the Illuminary Tunnels Linked Caverns, which gets 1 point of lore for every location you're playing. It'll also give you access to John Silver Greedy Treasure Seeker, which has a similar ability. Now, whichever one of those colors you choose, Ruby's still going to do most of the heavy lifting, because you've got Agrabah Marketplace, which has 2 lore for 3 ink. You've got the Bitterwood Underground Forest, which draws you a card when you move a 5+ strength, like Elsa there. Also, Sleepy Hollow the Bridge, which can gain you an extra 2 lore when a character quests there, though you do have to banish it. Ruby also has some new locations from this set. Scrooge's Counting House, Ebenezer's Office. It's the first location with boost, which is kind of interesting. It's naturally got 1 lore, then gets +1 willpower and +1 lore for each card underneath it. Then there's Graveyard of Christmas Future, Lonely Resting Place, which gives you a pseudo boost when you move a character there and lets you get all those tuck cards to hand at the start of your turn. Finally, Beast's Castle Winter Gardens, which gains a lore whenever a character there challenges another character. Not particularly powerful, but it does only cost 1 ink. Now, Ruby also has some excellent location support. So there's Get to Safety from the last set. This lets you put a location into play from your discard and will draw you a card if you also happen to have Sleepy Hollow in play. There's Tuk Tuk Lively Partner, which is a 3-cost evasive that gives you a free move when he's played. The Islands I Pulled from the Sea, it's a song that lets you tutor a specific land from deck to hand. And then a new song, The Cold Never Bothered Me. The fact that it's not The Cold Never Bothered Me anyway bothers me. But it's a song that lets you filter, so look through the top 4 cards of your deck for a location, then gives you a discount to play it or whatever other location you've got in hand. I mean, just a ton of support, like I said. I would also be remiss if I didn't point out the best card to pair with Ice Artisan. We've already talked about this. Every Floodborn needs a good shift target, and here we've got Elsa, Concerned Sister. This is an inkable 3-cost character with some decent stats. She's 2 strength, 2 willpower, 2 lore, and she gives you a 2 ink discount on your next location that turn when you play her. I'm not saying locations are going to be a tier 1 deck, but thanks to this set, we do have a deep pool of resources to it. I'm at least going to give it a try. But what do you all think? Is Elsa going to make some waves or not? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this. So our other Ruby legendary is Wreck-It Ralph Raging Wrecker. That was so hard to say. He is an uninkable 7-cost Storyborn Hero Whisper with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and 3 lore. He has boost 1 and 2 additional abilities. First is Powered Up. This character gets +1 strength for each card under him. The other is Who's Coming With Me? I don't think I said that right. When this character is banished, banish all characters with strength equal to or less than the strength he had in play. This is an interesting card that is really giving me Sisu vibes. It's got similar stats, similar abilities. The main difference here, of course, is Sisu just took out your opponent's weaker characters, while Ralph can be scaled higher if need be, just at the cost of it doesn't make a distinction between your board and your opponent's board. This is kind of an interesting design because depending on how strong you get him, he can wipe the board when he leaves. And putting him into play is putting your opponent on notice. If they turn anything sideways, then Ralph can potentially ruin their day with just a single challenge. I do think this card will see some play. It's not an auto-include in every Ruby deck, but oddly enough, I think it goes really well with Elsa locations because that's not the kind of strategy that needs a ton of characters to win. The only question here is, can the Elsa deck keep an aggro opponent off tempo long enough to stock up on locations and then drop Ralph? If nothing else, it will be a fun experiment. Let's now check in on Sapphire, which I think includes the best legendary, if not the best card from this set. But before we talk about that one, let's take a look at Scrooge McDuck, Reformed Ebenezer. This is an inkable 6-cost Floodborn hero with 4 strength, 6 willpower, and 2 lore. He has Shift 4 and the ability Spreading Joy. When you play this character, you may put a card from the top of your deck face down under each of your other characters. If you do, those characters gain Ward until the start of your next turn. So I am of 2 minds on this. On the one hand, really cool design space. But on the other, I think it's very niche. This clearly wants to be paired with Legendary Donald, which will probably get a lot of value out of it. But I don't think Donald really returns the sentiment. In terms of the boost mechanic, I just feel like Sapphire is the third wheel to Emerald and Ruby. Still, it's a pretty card, and I really hope we get an enchanted because as of recording, we haven't seen all the enchanted yet. On the other hand, the other Sapphire legendary is bonkers. This is Moana, Curious Explorer. She's an inkable 5-cost Storyborn hero princess with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and 2 lore. Her ability is Ancestral Legacy. You can ink cards from your discard. Couple things. First, it is long overdue that we have language that specifically describes the standard game action of putting a card from your hand to your inkwell. We've all been using it as shorthand. It's nice that it is now official. It should have been something we had from the beginning, but I am glad that things will be more clear moving forward. Second, this thing is amazing. I mean, treating your discard as a resource, at least for the purposes of inking a card, it's so incredibly powerful. I mean, we've tiptoed through this design space a bit. Cards like All Is Found and that Jiminy Cricket, but we haven't seen something that changes the rules of the game this dramatically since Donald Duck Flustered Sorcerer. And that card never saw play, but I guarantee you Moana will be everywhere. What's really cool is Moana's ability actually covers any extra inking you might get, such as if you play Sail the Azurite Sea, or playing Infinity and you have Bell Strange but Special. However, this does not work with things that put cards into your inkwell. So this is your effects like Tipo, Growing Sun, or Cinderella Dream Come True. You could still run Moana with Cinderella because Moana is a princess, and she should come in one turn after Cindy, meaning you get that extra Cinderella trigger. Just don't try feeding that trigger from your discard because that will not work. Honestly, this card is phenomenal. I fully expect it to shoot up really high, especially when the set debuts in a couple weeks. I think it will settle, though, kind of in the same way that Cinderella did, but it's still not going to be budget friendly. Last but not least, let's look at Steel. So here we have 2 legendary characters with what I would say are small but dedicated followings. First up, we have Angel Experiment 624. This is an inkable 4-cost Storyborn ally alien with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. She has 2 abilities. First is Untouchable. While you have no cards in your hand, this character gains resist +2. Her second is Good Aim. Once during your turn, you may choose and discard a card to deal 2 damage to chosen character. This is another one I'm on the fence about because I really don't think her first ability is all that great. It reminds me a lot of Tiana Celebrating Princess, which, if you don't remember, your opponents couldn't play actions if she was exerted and you had no cards in hand. That is arguably a better ability, and I don't remember Tiana ever seeing play. I do like Angel's second ability a lot more, since throwing 2 damage at will is nothing to sneeze at, especially if it just costs you a discard. But it is only once per turn, and unless you're drawing more cards than you're discarding and playing, like say you're with Amethyst, you're going to max out really quick. I do see the appeal of this card. I know there's people out there who absolutely love Angel. I don't see this card getting a lot of playtime though. I'm a lot more positive about this last legendary, but I will admit to I'll say high level of bias. This is Darkwing Duck Cool Under Pressure. He is an inkable 7-cost Storyborn super hero detective. Super is a new classification that we're seeing starting with this set. He has 6 strength, 8 willpower, and 2 lore. He has also got Shift 5, and no, that is not a mistake. He is a Storyborn with Shift. He has 2 other abilities. First is Take That. During your turn, whenever an item is banished, you may pay 1 ink to deal 2 damage to chosen character. The other is Evildoers Beware. This character can challenge ready villain characters. Again, I'm extremely biased, but I think this card is amazing. Darkwing Duck has long been one of my favorite Disney characters, and I also happen to love item strategies. And because he does need that heavy item shell, you'll probably want to take this into Sapphire and Steel, which is perfect because you've got multiple shift targets from both of those colors. The worst one is probably Dashing Gadgeteer because he triggers off questing. That's an ability you don't want to lose to being shifted onto. Fortunately, in that same color, we've also got Drake Mallard, which, aside from being incredibly thematic, shifting from his mild-mannered ego into his superhero persona, this one has Ward, which he'll protect, allowing him to protect himself until you can make the upgrade. Then in Steel, we've also got Darkwing Duck Crime Fighter, which is just a one-drop vanilla. Honestly, either of them is good. Run both. So as for his first ability, you're going to want a lot of cheap items that do cool things when they enter, and then ideally can banish themselves. This will let you start throwing a lot of damage around. Medal of Heroes wouldn't be the worst. It doesn't do anything when it enters, but it does give you a nice boost when you banish it. Ink Render's not bad. It gives you a card when it enters, but it also doesn't banish itself. So you'll probably need something like Sapphire Chromicon, which can banish items you control for 2 lore. Jumbo Pop, again, not bad. It's a little costlier at 3 and it's not inkable, but you do get card draw and it can banish itself. We've got a few new ones. Blue Smoke, which it's an uninkable 1 cost that can play for free if you have Darkwing Duck in play, which theoretically you will. And then you can banish it to give someone Ward. I'll admit I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's cheap and it banishes itself, so it might be worth looking at. Then you've got Infra Pink Ultra Scan Specs. So it's going to filter when you come in and then banish itself to give someone alert. So probably a little better than the Blue Smoke, but you can run both. My favorite of the new items, though, is actually Darkwing's Chair Set. It's an uninkable 3-cost item that lets you ramp from the top of your deck. I think this will see play outside of Darkwing Duck decks, especially once we get rotation in 2 sets with Attack of the Vine this fall, because that's when, unless we get reprints, we will lose Tipo and Sail the Azurite Sea, and we need something to replace them. It can also exert and banish itself to heal 2 damage off of something, and if that character is Darkwing, it can be 4. Lots of options, not great, but lots of options. His final ability, though, I mean, that kind of looks like trash. But then you've got this card right here, the Thunderquack, an inkable 3-cost item that makes all opposing characters villains and lets you exert it to gain a lore if a character was banished in a challenge this turn. So the synergy here is pretty spot on. I mean, I like that a lot. And it can come down as a little surprise, letting your Darkwing do some damage to something your opponent probably wanted to keep safe. One interesting note here, though, is that second part of Thunderquack. The wording is character was banished. It doesn't care if it was your character or another character. I will admit, though, I was kind of hoping this set would really set up Sapphire Steel items for kind of a comeback, because I got some Tamatoas that I'm itching to use again, but unfortunately, I don't think it's quite there yet. Maybe Darkwing sees some play. Maybe he doesn't. I'm going to try it out because I love Darkwing Duck. But if nothing else, the Infinity side of the house, which Blue Steel is dominating at, it got some cool toys. So it should continue to kind of exert or assert its dominance there. All right. Those are the 12 legendaries from Winterspell. And honestly, they're just the tip of the iceberg. I think this set is fantastic, and it's really going to shake up the meta. The nice thing is I don't think anyone's strategy is going to dominate, which is a great place for Core Constructed to be after 2 sets of really just purple dominance. And we're not done. We still have a ton of cards that we need to talk about, from the super rares all the way down to even the commons. So why not give us a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss those videos when they do debut. And in the meantime, why don't you check out this video right here, where we talk about everything you need to know for the next 3 sets. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.